Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to talk about the latest character that's been added to the game, which is the God Class Hyoga. Now he's a very strong character. Now some people may think he can only be played in a freeze team, which is definitely not true because he can actually be played by himself independently. He obviously does make the freeze team a lot better, and I think I will post a separate video in the future about why he will make the freeze team even better. Like freeze team right now is already great. Like Freeze team, in my opinion, is possibly the best PvE team for story maps and another dimensions, etc. But the Freeze team doesn't quite work in PvP. However, Hyuga kind of complement that and actually make that team viable in PvP as well, which is very interesting. But yeah, more about that in a future video when I actually talk about the Freeze team in details. Um, Now, as usual, I'll be going through his clothes, his constellation, all of his skills, etc. And at the end of the video, I'll show his trial stages. Now, let's start off with his ultimate. So, his ultimate is able to basically target three enemies and inflict them into a state called absolute freezing, which lasts for 4 seconds. And during that time, they obviously count as the normal freeze, so they won't be able to move. But on top of that, all of the passive, trigger, and also aura effect, which I think just like halo effect, will be temporarily invalid as well, and they won't receive any buffs, which is absolutely amazing. I already mentioned in my last video about Sphinx Pharaoh, how Sphinx Pharaoh is pretty good already because he's able to break the enemy's passive. But Goku's Hyuga goes way beyond that because it's not just passive, now it's also trigger and oral effects. And also at the top of that, is against three enemies, whereas Sphinx Pharaoh is only up against one. I mean, granted, Sphinx Pharaoh has a longer duration, I think like 6 seconds, rather than Hyuga's 4 seconds. But still, this is an absolutely amazing skill. There's so many different characters will be countered by this. Like, if you just think about it, like passive, trigger, and halo effect will be invalid, and they can't move. But you essentially make a unit into completely nothingness, right? Because they can't attack, they can't use any skills, they won't receive any buffs. Absolutely crazy. So that's kind of what makes Hyuga one of the best characters in the game. Um, then the second move, we have something which is basically attack all targets and is able to make the target slowing down. And if the target is already frozen, then what's going to happen is that you're going to double the effect of slowdown. So very good skill as well because especially because it's an AOE and a lot of time in a freeze team, if you do play a freeze team, that is, what's gonna happen is that the whole and all of the enemy tend to be frozen anyway. But even without the freeze team, your ultimate is able to hit three enemies. So you're still gonna slow down three of the enemies for 6 seconds, which is a lot as well. Cool. Then the next one, this is another very strong passive. And basically what happens is this is kind of like his defensive skill. But basically he's gonna whenever he releases any skills, he will get something called Crystal Body for 6 seconds, during which time all of the control will be halved, control the duration of the control, and he is gonna receive the control effects are gonna reduce by 75% and the damage will be reduced by half completely broken. It'll be even better once we move to his clothes or constellation, one of them, but completely broken because first of all, half of the damage. That's absolutely amazing. Hardly you will hardly ever be controlled as well because it will be reduced by 75%. This is just going to be crazy. Then we move on to the last skill, which is a trigger skill, and this is basically saying whenever any enemy is in freeze or absolute freeze, they are also going to take some damage. So essentially, you kind of make freeze into a bit of a damage over time, similar to kind of poison or bleed or burn, that kind of thing, which is not bad either. Once again, it does improve the freeze team because a lot of time what happens is the freeze team is very control heavy. So if you ever play the freeze team in story maps in PvEs, etc., what you tend to see is that uh, the enemies wouldn't move at all because they're internally under freeze. However, sometimes you're not doing enough damage to actually wipe them out, especially if the enemy have like a Libradoko or uh, Libra Shuru who is able to self regenerate over time. Normally, a freeze team can make sure that you won't die, but sometimes it will time out because you're not able to do enough damage in the 90 seconds. This basically improves that by a lot because now you're actually doing a lot of damage over time, which is going to be really, really nice as well. Okay, cool. Now let's move on to his clothes, which is absolutely amazing. Everything about his clothes is amazing. The first one, cooling time of diamond dust is reduced by 25%, and if the target is already in freeze, reduced by an extra 25%. Now, why is this nice? Diamond dust is this. What's it gonna do? Reduce cooldown by 25%, or even potentially 50% when target is under frozen. 50% basically means you are going to release your skill twice as fast. And what does his skill 3 do? Whenever you release any skill, you get this crystal body. So if you're able to do this twice as fast, that basically means you are going to trigger your skill 3 twice as many times and almost have it back to back, etc. So that's kind of why the first level, the close, is really amazing. Second one, slowdown and attack reduction caused by this skill will actually be applied to Hyoga in equal amounts as well. Why is this amazing? You are doing an attacking speed reduction to them, but what you're getting in return, you're doing attacking speed increase to you because whatever uh, attacking speed they have lost will be increased to you instead. And what does that mean? You release your skills quicker. You charge up your ultimate quicker. And what's that going to do? It will make your crystal body go quicker. So that's why it's absolutely amazing. Then this one, crystal body will also take effect on all of the other allies. Once again, absolutely amazing skill. Before it was already broken when just on yourself, now it's on all of the allies. And next one, this is another crazy one. Whenever they attack a knight in the state of crystal body, they will now be a 60% chance of being frozen as well. So this would then now completely solve your other problem, where even if you're just playing Hugo by himself, not in a freeze team, how can you actually get all of the enemies to be frozen so you can activate your additional effect in your skill 2 and also skill 4? This is basically how, because now they will be frozen. Well, high chance they will be frozen when they attack anyone. And imagine if the enemy has like an AoE attack, what's that gonna mean? Like if they're attacking all five of your knights, and every single one of them have a crystal body, and each time when they hit, it has a 60% chance. Basically, any enemy which is gonna do AOE attack are almost certainly gonna be frozen afterwards. And that this is gonna be a complete game changer in the meta as well, because now the meta is gonna. I mean, to be honest, with the release of Seiya Goku, the meta already kind of changed from AOE damage to single target. But this is gonna make that even more obvious now. So this is absolutely amazing. This is also what's gonna make the freeze team so much better because some of the problem with the freeze team is one problem, for example, is the freeze team is normally a bit too fragile, but now this crystal body will take effect on all of the allies. That's going to solve that problem. The other problem the freeze team sometimes have is that you may not always be able to get enemies frozen. But once again, now, if you actually have this ability where when someone attack you, they have a passive chance of being frozen for 2 seconds, it can solve that problem as well. So this is kind of why this is very important. Constellation, once again, all very good. Well, the first one is pretty average because that just increased the damage over time. But 9 out of 9, complete game changer again. Because now, first of all, you are immune to all freeze effect, which is meh. But then the second effect, all freeze effect caused by outside cannot be dispelled. This is basically what's gonna now make Freeze Team viable in PvP. Because before in PvE, what happens is that, especially in the later stages, it's normally like 3 or 4 teams, right? You have to pick them, and you can easily tell from the enemy lineup which one, for example, is not able to dispel control effects. Because a freeze team is all about controlling the enemy so that they won't be able to hit you, they won't be able to do any damage, and you kind of just wear them down. However, if they have a way to get rid of those controls, it's going to be very annoying. So before, that's why it was only really viable in PvE because you can actually see what other opponents, which units the enemy have. But in PvP, it's a lot tougher because normally in PvP there are ways where people can get around control effect. For example, there is Sirius, and also obviously now there's also Sean Goklos, right? Imagine you put out a freeze team, you freeze all of the enemies, right? That's gonna be more than three. Sean's passive is just gonna make all of them go away and dispel them instantly. However, now that's not gonna be the case anymore. because now all the freeze effect caused by our side cannot be dispelled, and immediately you actually make the freeze team viable in PvP, which is also a huge improvement. And that's why seriously, Gold Class Hyuga is really strong, regardless of whether you want to play him in a freeze team or not. It is an expensive character because, like I said, if you want to play him in PvP, you have to get 9 out of 9 Constellation. Every single level of the close is super good for him as well. So you really want level 30 for his close as well. So that's kind of why he is quite expensive character, but definitely worth it. So please do get him if you have the opportunity.